All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hyper 2021. We'll get started just with a brief intro before we go into our first talk. Just so everyone knows, we're going to be recording the whole workshop for the benefit of folks who couldn't make it now. And thanks to those of you for whom this is an awkward time zone. We appreciate your being here. But we will be recording the talk, and afterwards we'll just check in with all the speakers to see whether you're okay with us putting your talk online. Also, everyone is welcome to ask questions through the chat, and I can read them to our speakers if you would prefer not to be recorded. All right, so just to introduce myself, I'm Daniel Fremont. I'm an assistant professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz. My interest in hyperproperties, at first, I worked with them through the security perspective, information flow properties, and in particular, I worked on model counting techniques for computing information flows through programs. But then later, hyperproperties came up again in other research I did on cyberphysical systems that use machine learning components, where hyperproperties have been used to formalize various specifications for machine learning systems. So already we can see that hyperproperties come up in a variety of different fields, and that was really one of the motivations of this workshop. The other co-organizer of this workshop, Hazem Torfah, unfortunately couldn't make it today, but I want to thank him. He was really instrumental in getting this workshop set up and getting off the ground in the first place. And filling in for him very kindly, we have Raina, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Raina Dimitrova. I'm tenure-track faculty at CISPA, Center for Information and Security and Privacy in Germany. My interest in hyperproperties is in particular in the context of probabilistic hyperproperties, namely hyperproperties for probabilistic systems. Among other things, I'm also a co-workshop chair for ATVA, so I'm very happy that Daniel and Hazem agreed to organize this wonderful workshop on hyperproperties. Also, I'm very glad that among all the interesting workshops that we have at ATVA, you have chosen to attend today this one. So,
thanks, Raina. So just to say a little bit more about the goal of this workshop. So the motivation, as I mentioned, was the increasing use and study of hyperproperties in a variety of different fields, not just formal methods, but also security, cyberphysical systems, machine learning, etc. In all of these fields, hyperproperties have started to become a widely used formalism in some areas. Information flow policies, like I mentioned, but also symmetries in hardware design, robustness in cyberphysical systems, fairness properties in machine learning, etc. And the goal of this workshop is to foster the exchange of ideas about hyperproperties between researchers from all of these different communities, and to give everybody a sort of synoptic view of the recent advances that have occurred both on the theoretical and the practical side for specifying and analyzing and using hyperproperties. The talks that we're going to have today will cover developments on specifying hyperproperties, algorithms for verifying, synthesizing, and monitoring them, and applications in all of these areas that I mentioned. So we have a great program scheduled for today. Hopefully you can all see my screen here. Just to go over it briefly, we have the intro we're doing now, then we have 6 invited talks, which are going to be 45 minutes each with at least 5 minutes for questions at the end, more if we have time. And these, as I said, will span all sorts of different areas where hyperproperties are being used and where we think there will be further developments in the near future. And we're going to close at the end of the day with a panel discussion where we'll invite back our speakers, and hopefully most of them will be able to join us, to discuss the state of the field of hyperproperties, potential connections between each other's work, new areas where hyperproperties might be useful or where techniques for reasoning about them could prove important, And of course, open problems and directions for future research that span all of these different varying areas of interest that our speakers have. And we will also be very happy to take questions from the audience. We would like the panel to discuss the topics that are of most interest to the community. So please do feel free to submit questions during the panel, and we will moderate that. All right, let me see how we're doing on time. So we're still a few minutes before the first talk. So maybe we can wait a few minutes then, just in case there was anyone who wasn't going to be able to come until the first talk time. And we'll start right at 7:15 with our first talk from Tachio. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I think that's about it. For those of you who are attending and aren't panelists, hopefully the webinar interface in Zoom is clear. There should be a button labeled Q&A where you can ask questions during the talk, and we'll see them here. And either we can have the speaker answer them directly, or I'll read them out. If you have any difficulties using the interface, you could send me a message in the chat, or if all else fails, shoot me an email, and I'll try to monitor that to make sure everybody can participate. Okay, then I think we will just wait 3 minutes before we get started with our first talk.